Okay, I say we start so that we are not too delayed for the final session, and then we can still accept the people joining this session. So once more, good morning and welcome to the last final session, session 9 of the MSP Baltic Forum, which is on effective use of space for a sustainable blue economy, Baltic approaches to multi-use and marine and coastal areas. Can we? Yes. So for today, my name is Ivana Stojanovic, and together with my colleague Franziska Droz von Ruckschel, we will be moderating this session. We come from Submariner Network for Blue Growth, which is an organization operating in the Baltic Sea, but not only, contributing to cooperation with the North Sea and for some topics even beyond. We will present ourselves very briefly. So in Submariner Network, I lead the team that is dealing with marine protection and planning, so also maritime spatial planning, ocean multi-use. And yes, in the past 3 years, I've been working with Submariner. Prior to that, I was working in the policy advice and implementation in the topics related to the marine environment protection, restoration, and planning, and in general in the blue economy sector. Maybe, Franziska, if you briefly want to also introduce yourself.
Yeah, I'm Franziska Droz von Ruckschel, and I also work in the same team as Ivana, mainly on multi-use as well as marine protected areas, both in EU projects and in consultancy projects.
Thank you so much. So for today, we have around 1 hour and 15 minutes, where we wanted to start with a short introduction. After that, we will have a couple of inspiring presentation for the then interactive session and discussion that we envisaged as live Slido. We find it fun, in addition to being also informative. So we hope you will like it, and we will really need to respect the time envisaged for each of the section of the agenda, so as to be able to really close around 12 or 12:05. So yeah, we will have some experiences from some of the Baltic state countries on the integration of multi-use in their MSPs, or for example, in the exclusive economic zone of Germany, then on the coexistence between offshore wind and fisheries. We will have also a presentation of Maritime, from a partner of a very important ongoing project in the Baltic and North Sea. And then we will also have a pitch-style presentation from a coordinator of multi-use project Old Farms, especially insights from the pilot cases that can inspire our discussion. To frame this session, we wanted to just give a couple of information about what is going on this topic in the Baltic and the North Sea. Of course, this is not everything, but as Submariner, we can provide our experience on the important EU mission Ocean and Waters. And this is something that is being implemented in different sea bases. As you can see in the Baltic and North Sea, we have one important objective, which is to make the blue economy carbon neutral and circular. That means that directly under this objective, we have the promotion of circular, low-carbon, multi-purpose use of marine and water space as one of the priorities. So this topic is very much a priority at EU level, but also in the implementation of this ocean mission in the Baltic and the North Sea. So this is one of the projects that was actively contributing to these processes in the past 3 years. And in the past 3 years, we had several Blue Mission Banos arenas for us, where we could discuss with different stakeholders, different topics, including multi-use. And we mentioned this as an important information because each of these arenas resulted in a roadmap with concrete action points for the Baltic Sea, the North Sea, on the topic of multi-use and MSP, among other blue economy topics. As a submariner contribution to all this, there were numerous projects implemented in the past, starting with MSP, and really then shifting from the single-use approach to MSP to multi-use approach. So different projects have been implemented together with the Baltic and North Sea partners. And right now, the ongoing projects, and you will hear some important aspects for this session from these projects, which are old farms and NESP projects. So, since I already announced the time is short, I would like to introduce our first presenter, who is Bettina Kepler from BSH, Germany. She holds a degree in geography from the University of Bonn, and she studied urban planning in the Technical University of Hamburg. She worked primarily in urban and regional planning, but after she joined BSH, she was involved in the introduction of the first maritime spatial plans for the German EEZ, and has since then worked on various international cooperation projects on MSP, and has been engaged in the revision and implementation processes of the German EEZ MSPs. Bettina, please, you have 10 minutes.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for this introduction. We'll talk about the study we have commissioned on multi-use opportunities in the German EEZ. And this has been taken, this task has been carried out during the last 2 years or 1.5 years by our contractors. And with regard to the background on that, we have a spatial planning law asking for sustainable development of space as a guiding principle. Space should be utilized as efficiently, safely as possible, and users should affect each other as little as possible. So that's the overarching background or framework. And we have then commissioned this experts report on the multi-use of sites. And on behalf of our Federal Ministry of Housing, Urban Development and Construction, which is responsible for maritime spatial planning in the German EEZ, not for the territorial sea. So this was meant to analyze from an MSP perspective opportunities for fishery options near or within offshore wind farms, as stated in MSP 21, but this scope was eventually expanded towards a broader view on that, and maybe looking at even other opportunities. So the study started out with a kind of inventory of what's already happening with regard to multi-use projects, and this was carried out in areas, or the focus was on areas which might be similar to the conditions in the German EEZ, and the solutions which could be transferable to the German conditions. And as you see, there were a lot of studies, projects, and pilot case studies looked at, and as you see, most of them are within the North Sea area, North Sea region, and most of them looked at offshore wind energy, combinational offshore wind energy with low traffic aquaculture, passive fishery, nature restoration, as you also see in that numbers on the right side. And the Netherlands, when looking at national approaches to multi-use, the Netherlands was taken as a kind of role model, or where multi-use in offshore wind farms is being carried out or implemented from agreements on a high level with the North Sea program down to, in a structured process, down to the main instruments for implementation, these area passports, which you probably have seen before in other circumstances here. These are some kinds of examples of opportunities or which have been found in the case studies and study projects with regard to algae farming, for example, or low traffic aquaculture with oysters, or passive fishery, and also some mobile research activities. The next step was being then creating a compatibility matrix for possible or potential co-uses or activities in coexistence with wind farms. And they were split up. For example, aquaculture was split up into several different kinds of aquaculture or fisheries. And the general assessment of compatibility of these activities with offshore wind was based on a level of experience, expert judgment, and available knowledge. And from this scope of most maybe compatible combinations, some were chosen to be assessed in more detail for the German EEZ. And the low traffic aquaculture options, passive fishery, scientific research, nature restoration. And these were assessed with regard to available space and functional compatibility and other aspects. So this was the contractors, they started out with looking for the available space within wind farms for this, for co-use, and starting with looking at the security of the buffer zones around wind turbines and along the cables within the wind farm, and narrowed these down from the usually 500 meters safety buffers down to 100 meters, because this was the result of stakeholder discussions also with wind farm operators, that this would be enough for them to operate safely. And there was 3 different kind of representative wind farms were chosen. Some existing wind farms in the North Sea that were closer to shore, and a potential wind farm further out on sea, and another example in the Baltic Sea, which is also an existing wind farm which is operational. And in that case, you see that for safety reasons, they had also been added some connecting navigation corridors between wind turbines within the wind farms to make maintenance work more efficient. When it comes to the space which is needed for certain activities, here you see some examples for mussels, aquaculture, passive fishery, etc., with some stating the space needed for single or small plots for this kind of activities, and you see it on the lower graph with the green areas, zoomed out. So it seems like a very small area which would be needed. Some other aspects had been looked at, like the seasonality, which time of year these could be operating, and this was also mentioned as a not so critical. And with regard to risks, it seemed that the risk is more with the strong risks are more with the co-users than with the offshore wind operators. And with regard to economic viability, it seems with current prices, these kind of activities also seem quite viable. With here, this is the example of low traffic aquaculture. And general conclusions, we need some frameworks which are supporting this kind of multi-use and implementation. The contractors recommended demonstration sites to be included in the MSPs for some offshore wind areas to try to get some more information or research and experience with this kind of coexistence. And we also have to create the needed environment with all the other aspects the contractors looked at. Yeah, and this is it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Bettina. Thank you also for keeping the time. This study is also available at the website of the BSH, and behind on the table you have a QR code if you would like to scan it. It's available in German and English. So we go to the next presentation, which is the presentation of the Nordic study on coexistence between offshore wind and fisheries. We have with us Kerstin Joyce from Nordregio. One second. She's a senior research advisor in Nordregio, working within the field of sustainability, regional development and spatial planning, especially marine spatial planning. She has a background in environmental economics and aquatic resource management and has long worked as a policy advisor and analyst. She has experience in Swedish public authority sector as well, such as Swedish Environmental Protection Agency and the Ministry, and as well as working in marine policy on biodiversity ecosystem services. And she has a special interest in working at the junction of research, policy and communication. You have 10 minutes for your presentation, please.
Let me see. Thank you. Yes, just to mention that Nordregio is a Nordic and international research institute, and it's established by the Nordic Council of Ministers, but a lot of the projects are project funded. But this study is for the Nordic Council of Ministers Fishery and Aquaculture Committee. And it goes under the name Green Meets Blue, Green Energy Meets Blue Food, Sustainable Coexistence in Nordic Seas. And this has been soon a 2-year project, ends in April next year, 2026, and deals with one of the most pressing challenges to Nordic planners, to how to enable coexistence between green energy, not least offshore wind, and marine food production. In our project, I'd like to highlight that this project doesn't start from a multi-use angle, but I think that some of the findings can still be valuable where and when multi-use solutions might be suitable. And we also focus on how to enable coexistence between offshore wind energy and fishery, and not least commercial fishery. And I think this is quite important because different sectors are quite different. And we focus a lot on how to, we hope that this project can help Nordic countries to cooperate effectively and enable them to address potential sea use conflicts between these sectors better. And we have specifically looked at how coexistence conditions between these sectors have been described in research, and I'm not going to focus on that in this presentation. There will be part of a longer report later on. I'm going to focus more on findings that is included in our policy brief that I also put at the end of the room here, and it was published yesterday. But just one thing from when you look at scientific literature, that conflicts are primarily over space between offshore wind and commercial fisheries. So this is where we had to dig deeper. We have also looked at how conflicts and synergies between the sectors have been addressed in Nordic marine spatial planning. So we looked at all Nordic countries' marine spatial plans, for example. And we also conducted 6 case studies, 5 Nordic and 1 in Scotland last year. And based on all the input into these case studies, we realized that we have to look at what drives and what hinders offshore wind actors and fishery actors to coexist. Of course, we also want to draw lessons from the Nordic experiences that we can also share to other countries. I think I had yeah, this is just to show where the case studies were, and if you're interested in those, they are on our website as well. You can also contact us. But in Finland, Sweden, Denmark, and Norway, and also in Iceland was a bit specific case because they don't have offshore wind, and also in Scotland. And I just wanted to, I think I have a slide also on, we had a workshop also in the spring with stakeholders where we try to map out collaboration challenges between and opportunities across all phases of offshore wind development. So from area designation all the way to decommissioning. So there were both offshore wind developers and fishery actors, but also other stakeholders, also aquaculture stakeholders and policy stakeholders, etc. To what our policy brief then that was just published, one of our core messages in our policy brief that I would say that this policy brief is very much based on the case studies and also workshop, but all the literature input has all this gone into this, of course. But what we can see is tension arise not only from spatial competition, but ultimately also from contrasting values and different operational practices, and ultimately different relationships with the marine environment. And this is all happening within a fragmented and very inconsistent political and planning and permitting systems. So the implication is for coexistence to be long-lasting or sustainable over time, it also requires structures for continuous and meaningful collaboration and not just technical spatial solutions. In the policy brief, we also have highlighted 3 interconnected key challenges to governance. These are not isolated, they're connected, and they also reinforce each other. So the first one we identified and we called political volatility, and this has got to do with, we've heard about this already over these 2 days, shifting political agendas in the countries and how that affects trust between actors, but also the willingness to invest, for example, for offshore wind developers. So one example is in Sweden, for example, there was subsidies for offshore wind developers to connect to the grid on land. That was then removed. That creates uncertainty, and for fishery actors, there's uncertainties about compensation and what will be covered and not. So this kind of political changing environment and not stable enabling conditions erodes trust, but also affects the collaboration between these actors. The second one is limitations within marine spatial planning frameworks. And from stakeholders' perspective, they need to deal with separate stakeholder engagement processes within permitting, within marine spatial planning frameworks. So the outcomes of marine spatial planning processes are often, as we see, unclear. What to expect. Some countries have guiding plans, other ones have legal plans. So this also creates an uncertainty and unwillingness to engage. Only 2 minutes. Okay, then we'll go. That was very quick. The third one is about the permitting system that is, in contrast to marine spatial planning frameworks, often project-specific, and there's overlapping legal frameworks and late stakeholder involvement, and this adds to the complexity. But we have good news in the policy brief as well, and these are based on Nordic experiences. As we see it, not one country has all the solutions, but one country has partial solutions. So we call these building blocks. And the first one is to enable sustainable coexistence. First building block, essential building block, is to establish structured dialogues. And we build this on the experiences from Norway, where offshore wind industry, the offshore wind industry and fishery organizations have jointly, well in advance before designating areas, co-created a kind of like they call it a living manual for coexistence, but it's ultimately how to collaborate, for example, at every single step of the offshore wind development process. The second one is to foster participatory culture, and we can take experiences from Finland, where there's a much more bottom-up process with feedback loops and regional engagement that can be learned from. And the third one about knowledge foundations, and we just know that this is the fact that we need more early and broader and inclusive impact assessments, not only looking at environmental impacts from a specific project and not only negative environmental impacts. We need to have ex ante early broad impact assessments taking in social, economic, ecological consequences into account. And you've heard about the Symphony tool from Sweden about cumulative impacts that's been instrumental in development of their plan. And the last one, to create more better institutional pathways. In Denmark, for example, there's the government is taking a higher risk in doing assessments before developers, for example, come in. So it's a bit more centralized. And we also have a recommendation, and this is for the Nordic countries, because it's a Nordic project, a Nordic level dialogue platform. And why? Because we share sea basins, and we also have a long tradition in stakeholder engagement and high public trust, and we can learn from each other. And this recommendation builds on these building blocks as themes, when we also have like guiding questions in the policy brief that can start this dialogue. And just to mention, we had the very first Nordic Marine Spatial Planning Forum just a few weeks ago, and it's very well aligned in that we need to kick this dialogue off. And there's more, so you can contact me or go to our website, and the policy brief is on a card down there. And if you're interested in the case studies, they should be here. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We, for this session, actually envisaged to share best practices and experiences that do not necessarily come from the Baltic Sea exclusively. So thank you for that, and it's a really good input for our interactive session. So we go to the third presentation. Okay. Yes, apologies. Which is on Maripark. And this one comes from Kini de Bol, who is representing the blue clusters. She's a project manager and a Belgian environmental engineer working for the blue clusters. And Blue Cluster is a network for enabling innovative and sustainable blue economy activities in Belgium. And Kini has been part of several MSP and multi-use projects throughout the years, and was significantly involved in the EMSP project, where the concept of Maripark was developed. Also, she's experienced in European policies and the targets and objectives of the Mission Ocean and Ocean Pact. Kini, have the floor.
Thank you, Ivana, for this very nice introduction. Just also to quickly recap, so I'm from the Blue Cluster, and probably I will take a bit of a different perspective, namely that from the sustainable blue economy and the business point of view. So as Ivana has nicely explained, we have been part of several Mission Ocean projects, and the main goal in that for the North Sea would be to make the sustainable blue economy carbon neutral and circular. So that is also where we focus on, and also to integrate this in the marine spatial planning. And for this, we have developed in several different projects, of which we have also been collaborating with many people that are present today, to actually provide a concept. And from this concept, the Maripark concept, we would like to go to one step further, is how to implement this and what are the technological, but also, like also Christine nicely explained, the governmental issues. Very quickly, this is Flanders, some maps here, some well, we have, for example, the Blue Accelerator, where we promote projects of a higher TRL to actually be tested in the North Sea. This means good for innovation, but also possibly good for multi-use. We are the ones, we have actually a first sea farm, which is managed by Colruyt. So we have, in our marine spatial planning, we have a commercial zone where Colruyt is the only one that took advantage of, and they are actually having their first mussels harvest. And we also have a very strong marine society. So we have experienced marine scientific research in our living lab in Raverseide. This is Blue Cluster. This is a slide from previous year, so it should be updated now. But we are actually, well, a business cluster, so we have members at small and medium-sized enterprises, but also larger companies like ports, and we have important partnerships with knowledge institutes. So actually, we're only about 15 employees, of which I am one. But we have many connections with science and with business, so with the field. These are actually our roadmaps. So we have 6 roadmaps we focus on. I will go quickly over them because I have to go to the, yeah, I will skip it maybe. We have 5 strategic priorities, of which today, you can read it, of course, it's also linked with the mission ocean, so it's also digitization and automation, of course, the energy transformation, the protection, which is highly on the agenda now, security. But the one that is important today are the commercial benefits of multi-use. So, as mentioned before, and you can also check it in the EMSP project, we have developed a concept. It's the Maritime concept. And what I wanted to say, well, I'll skip this one. No, I'll not skip this one. Why should we involve the industry? So I know many discussions today were about nature, about protecting, about implementing MPAs in marine spatial planning and how to improve this. But what could be the role of the industry and why is it important? I would say we bring along innovation. We will also bring along innovation in terms of the multi-use. And with that, if we implement infrastructures at sea, industry can bring more money. So if we have mandatory or incentives to have actually a nature-inclusive design that can contribute towards the marine protected areas, it will be with more money than if we only rely on NGOs. Then the power of planning, so the concept of the Maripark. Okay, if we want to implement multi-use, maybe we should have a concept like actually Le Corbusier was doing, so how to plan a city, how can we actually make sure the services that are provided by all players can be put in the right place. And then we go over to the zonation, the marine spatial planning. In Belgium, because we were asked to provide a link with marine spatial planning in Belgium, we actually had commercial and industrial zones where we advocated for a lot and where we wanted also to implement the multi-use later on, but they were actually removed from the planning. Instead of it, we will get multi-use areas in our eastern wind farms and also have a new testing area in front of the coast where we can test higher TRLs. So there we will actually put this multi-use in place. So what do we want to do with this Maripara concept? From the previous EMSP project, we know we have to combine all activities, energy, aquaculture, and nature-inclusive design in one. So we can contribute to all European policies at once. How do we want to do this? We strongly believe that if we have in this concept an overall management, a holistic management that can provide services like data management and security and safety to the entrepreneur. So actually, the way of thinking is that the entrepreneur should plug in and is de-risked. So also from a governmental point of view, we have a one-stop shop. So all the tenders and all the permits, all the information about that, they are streamlined and can be achieved at once. This was our first image about it. So actually, this is a very old image. We were still thinking about having like one infrastructure and all the activities next to each other, with some links towards the coasts and to the ports, where we could eventually work together, but also like diminish the risk for the nature and for the ecosystem. But in practice, it's very difficult. I think everybody of you, they know, been dealing with multi-use. At first, there's a lot of discussion about what is the definition, and then how will we work together, which incentives will we get, what activities are actually good to be combined, and how do we go one step further than from research studies to actual pilots and commercial implementations. And therefore, within the NESP project, we are currently, so this is a draft I will present here, develop a model and a step-by-step roadmap. This is the work package where we're working now. So we are developing a data framework for this Maripark, so for this holistic infrastructure or hub that combines all activities. What is needed for the data? How can we actually make sure the data is streamlined and managed by one authority, preferably the one that also manages the Maripark? Then how can it be ecosystem-based? So because that is very important, it should actually contribute positively to nature. What are then the sustainable strategies behind it? How can we actually provide you in 2 years with a blueprint? But the most important now is the visualization of the park. So the arguments, which activities are today or later to be combined or not. And I should announce this, also Submariner and Ivana, this is the first workshop in the NESP project within that, well, voilà, in the Baltic Sea Forum. I will quickly go to the roadmap. What we found for Belgium then is that today only like pilot studies exist, research studies. Nothing is possible. The phase 1, where we want to go to, is to actually use the existing wind farms. So we should collaborate with them. There will not be any Maripark standing alone. So we first go to them, and then we test, for example, really offshore floating solar towards a TRL higher than 9 in the wind farms. If we succeed, we can go further. Then we can, and also we will keep aquacultural farms close to the sea. In the next phase, we will go to the offshore floating solar, fully integrated in wind, and also towards smart aquaculture. So, because what is the problem also for integrating aquaculture now in the wind farms? The technologies lack experience. So we actually need smart aquaculture technologies which are today not yet there. So to go towards implementation, we will wait for another 10 years. What we can do now is to actually add sea ranching initiatives towards the farms. So these are a few images, but I want to get you enthusiastic actually for the outcome of the study, which will be announced for you to you in December this year. So as you can see now, we now have wind farms, we have a substation, and we have the sea farm close to the shore. Next stage, we want to have some pilots, some floating solar in the wind farms, and then after that, we might have a whole digital smart hub. But this will be in at least 30 years. Voila. Do I have 2 more minutes? 1 more minute? Well, there's also a question of, it's always about strategic choices. So for example, to integrate, I want to give you one example, to integrate offshore floating solar in wind, many people say, okay, we have cables, we can use them because it's alternating sinuses, you can use it for wind and for floating solar. But actually, the temperature, the cables are designed taking into account cooling down temperature needed for wind. So actually, we do not have so much space in the cables anymore to add floating solar. That means that there will be less solar panels than initially thought for, which also means less pressure at sea. So that's a good thing. On the other hand, we also have to think about, should we design beforehand already the dimension of the cables? And should we then think about the future? Or should we think about the priorities now and actually make the cables with a smaller design. So actually go for, more security budgets, etc. I think, sorry, I'm a bit too nervous, but fine, I think I'll end now. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kini. I think we framed this initial part with presentations, first starting with the German experience in the Baltic and the North EZ, but then also with some studies and concepts coming from other like Nordic countries, Belgium and so on. We have one more presentation, which is really showcasing pilot cases from the Oud Farms project. Oud Farms project is a Mission Ocean ongoing project for another a bit more than 6 months, 8 months. And today with us we have Alexander Zimba, representing the coordinator, Deltares of the project. He's an advisor and project manager of 10 years in the Netherlands, where Deltares is based, and has a background in mathematical modeling, ecosystem services, and data science, in addition to project management. He has been working on innovation in marine spatial planning and nature-inclusive offshore design, with focus on integrating low-trophic aquaculture, like seaweed, mussels, and oysters into offshore wind farms, which Oud Farms is about, actually. And Alex brings insights into sustainable and multi-use marine development sectors, and he leads several Horizon Europe projects. So in between stakeholder engagement, science, and modeling to shape the future of our oceans. Alex, you have 5 minutes. Yeah. I have a timer as well, so. Thank you, you have the floor.
Thanks, Ivana. So indeed, 5 minutes to talk about 6 pilots that have been doing activities over 3 years so far. So it's going to be the highlights in a very brief pitch, but please feel free to have a look at the project afterwards, or ask me and I can answer any questions. So generally, the project, what is it about? We're working predominantly in the Baltic and North Sea, where we're doing a co-design, co-management, and co-invest strategy. So we have both research, policy, and commercial actors all working within the project to work on 6 different pilots, 3 in the North Sea, which constitutes 1 in Germany, Netherlands, and Belgium, and then 3 or more in the Western Baltic, 2 in Denmark, and 1 in Germany. For this, we then have been talking over the past days over the needs and the demands of all the different developments going on in our oceans. Sometimes policymakers think we have 2 or 3 North Seas with all the projections of wind or food that they want to produce there. So with that, if everyone is operating in their own individual space, the entire sea would be covered and fully developed, so no room for nature, limited access. It would be an entire mess. Is multi-use always the solution? No, but it is a solution if you look at what was just presented from Belgium, and a small EEZ. If you have big ambitions, you don't have a lot you can work with in terms of space. For most of our activities, the approach we're taking is not looking at mitigation and an increase in mandate and increase in efficiency, but it's looking for more effective solutions. So not having mitigation as a strategy for then further development, but actually looking for restoration or potential good actions within these developments, meaning if you go to put an aquaculture site within an offshore wind site, you should balance this with the ecological thresholds and then also have either nature-inclusive design elements or nature restoration elements to then have a positive impact on the further developments. How would we support this? Well, again, you've seen some in the bottom right here. You can see some of the existing and future proposed offshore wind plans. It's becoming exceptionally busy, so where should you do what? We're using a combination of different modeling softwares and using different scenarios, a baseline scenario of nothing in the North Sea, the existing developments and the proposed developments. Offshore wind turbines then have impacts on the nutrient cycling and the local and medium field effects within these areas, which can be a benefit to things such as mussel and oyster aquaculture. It brings more nutrients to the surface, more phytoplankton, more food for them, but it can also have farther reaching effects once you start developing all of these elements. So for this, we're now rounding off the, finalizing the North Sea modeling efforts to then have, as I said, all of the future planned wind farms, and also using climate change climate change models to see what the potential future situation of these sites might be. This is then to inform in production capacity or production potential maps for the North Sea, and then moving also into the Baltic, where then you have, I won't go into that, this is one of our pilots is in Borssele wind farm. You can then have more strategic and flexible marine spatial planning. So again, our Dutch pilot is in the Borssele 3 wind farm, which we saw in the first presentation, where they have the paspoortgebieden. One of the major benefits of this and the future planned wind parks is flexibility in the planning to not require an absolute redevelopment of the marine spatial plan, but allow for concessions when new technologies and new elements arise, rather than starting from scratch or throwing the whole plan out. They have a mechanism embedded within the planning to allow for adaptations as these technologies arise. Furthermore, what we've seen talking about nature and restoration and the environments is in implementing all these different elements, you do create new situations. There's always been in wind parks, the impact on birds and mammals and wildlife. You're now putting in seaweed and mussels, potential food sources for these animals, and closely monitoring what the impacts of this are and whether they're actually increasing risks for the turbines and wildlife is a key element also in all of our pilots. Into the nature restoration and development, we also have a number of different artificial reefs or enhancements being deployed within the pilots. This is specifically within the Dutch pilot, and there's also within the German pilot in the Fino 3 platform, using these natural fibers. This is a company, think of an egg carton. You put it in the sea. This allows for colonization of bivalves and other elements within the sea, And then over the course of 15 to 20 years, it naturally dissolves. And then the hope is that what's already colonized this area will then become a biogenic forming reef. And this is low impact and requires no decommissioning, which can often disturb or ruin your restoration activities when you pull out all your nice things you've put in the sea. And the last thing, I think I'm 15 seconds over, but we're also doing scaled aquaculture. So we have some of these commercial actors which are then using off-the-shelf techniques such as long lines and ropes and nets to then actually do scaled high-density aquaculture or higher density aquaculture to then have the business development sector behind this with actual business plans, production potential, and analysis of the health and marketability of the products. So all these different elements are occurring to different factors or different scales within our 6 different pilots. If you're interested in it, please come to the website. Feel free to ask any questions. And we have a whole bunch of roadmaps and what have you coming out in the next 3 or 4 months as the project wraps up. So keep an eye out for the final elements and documents from the project. And that's it.
Thank you so much. A lot of information actually in a bit more than 5 minutes. You also have some old farms flyers and information on the table in the back. So thank you so much to all of our speakers, and I'm sure that you have a lot of questions for them. But what we envisaged for this last part of the session is a simple interactive exercise, which will be explained by Franziska. I only wanted to say that this is something just for you to know that will be taken up in the NESP project that was mentioned by Kini. So in this project, we will be developing multi-use recommendations at the sea basin level. So we would really like to take into account also your opinion in a couple of questions that we will have now for this session. We hope that the presentation gave you some food for thought, and now for this brief discussions that you will have in the next 25 to 30 minutes. Franziska?
All right, thank you very much, Ivana. I know you've all been sitting a lot, so we were trying to get you moving now, to get your blood flowing and get you thinking a little bit. So the way that we're envisioning this is that you can already see here in the corners, there's letters. We have the letter A here, letter B, letter C, and letter D. And then soon I will show you always a question. You have some time. I will also read out the question to quickly think about the answer, and then select the answer that you agree with the most, and then move into the corner of the question or of the answer that you agree with the most. Then you have quick 2 minutes just to discuss, why did you choose this answer? Are there any best practices or experiences that you're relying your answer on? And then we'll just do a very quick round of everyone sharing, just one person from each group sharing the main reasons, main best practices. So let's get started. Please all stay seated for now. I did this with children a while ago, different questions, of course, and they started running around. But I'm assuming with you I don't have this issue. First question is upscaling, on the topic of upscaling horizon. So by when is significant multi-use feasible in the Baltic Sea Basin? And then in this discussion, you can also consider the North Sea Basin, but the answer is about the Baltic Sea Basin at first. So A, within 3 years, B, within 3 to 7 years, C, 8 to 12 years, and D, beyond 12 years. With significant, we mean on a commercial level, partially integrated into policy, for example. And let's go. Yes. I'm sure you all have opinions about this. And as soon as you find your corner, you can start discussing. Yeah. Okay, you can discuss already. You don't need to wait for us. So just start discussing with each other. Yes. I can see, yes. I mean, we do find most people, I would say, in the corner of B and C. Ivana's counting right now. All right. All right. Then I know it is a very quick discussion, always a quick exchange.
Okay.
But then I would now have you look at the numbers. I mean, you can also see it around. We only have one person that is very optimistic within 3 years. Yes. Why did you choose this spot?
I choose this spot because I think multi-use has been effective for centuries. So we all do things there. So I think we are already in the future.
Thank you very much. Then 11 people that say 3 to 7 years. What have you been discussing? What is the reason for your choice?
Who would like to say a few words? You start. Yeah, please.
Yes, hello. Thank you for the workshop. And our group is very realistic because, and we thought about it because I argumented that it's related to the legal framework because multi-use can be any needed constructions and so on can be done when it's built into the legal framework, and I think it can be solved in 3 to 7 years. And solve it.
I'm also think that it's we can choose B, because when we had our small pilot mussel farm, it took around 3 years. So then I think this time frame, 7 years, it's what we choose. Yeah, maybe someone wants to say more.
No, but thank you so much. Going next to C, who would like to just share a couple of highlights from the discussion? The C is actually the winning answer in this live Slido. So the winning, I mean, most people selected this one. Anyone? Okay.
I can take it. We had a small discussion, not so much yet, but the reason why I'm here is because I see that it's very difficult for businesses to step into it now, due to legal frameworks, due to governance, due to, well, disagreements about nature. But also it should be actually a strategic choice from the government, which, well, now they have different priorities, so I don't see it happening in the first, what did we say, 12 years.
Okay, thank you so much. And beyond 12 years?
Yeah, we were kind of like here, and then there was no one there, so we're like, okay, we have to stand our ground. We thought the question was a little bit difficult, but like Christina said, we're not pessimistic, we're realistic. And maybe one can talk about combination of 2 uses in existing wind farms, but perhaps not multi-use as such. Do you want to add? Oh, we also talked about, maybe it depends on whether you talk about coastal or more offshore. So like combination with aquaculture would probably have to be coastal. Do you want to add?
I think one of the reasons was also this legal and civil liability, who takes overall kind of liability towards these multifunctional farms, and this hasn't been solved yet.
Okay, thank you so much. Just very quick answer, because we don't have time. For the North Sea, do you think people from the North Sea, the answer would be different? No. Okay, I see Kini. Okay, we need to move forward. Thank you so much. Next question.
Yes, then our famous bottlenecks that we like talking about. So we already started this a little bit, but I would like for you to think about and choose the most fitting answer again. So what are the biggest barriers for upscaling? I've heard regulatory framework a lot. Do you maybe think it might also be the technical standards and the safety rules? Bankability and insurance or unclear business models? An issue with stakeholder acceptance and perceived risk from the stakeholder side. So again, A is permitting and regulatory, B technical, C bankability, and D stakeholders. Let's go.
Be quick.
So then, why did you choose this? What are possible best practices or initiatives that you're basing this on?
Also, this as a regulatory element is very hard to do.
All right, then please wrap up your discussions. As we can see, we really have most people in the corners of permitting and bankability or economic feasibility. I'm not sure what the exact numbers are.
We were thinking that A and C are equal, but now people from B, C, so it's again C.
Yes.
Just two more than A.
All right, then Ivana will bring you the microphone and you can give us a little
Just a
recap.
couple of words, highlights.
Yeah, it seems that there is, at least in some countries, not the real will to implement it from the political level down to the licensing level, and not all levels of administration are really willing to implement such a scheme.
Okay, that's enough.
Thank you,
so
Bettina.
much. Going to C. Who would like to say a couple of words? Again? Okay.
Well, I'm talking again for the North Sea. I think, well, also as Felix already mentioned, permitting and regulatory fragmentation. Well, I can say in Belgium there's not a big will, but they are working on it. So eventually it will be fine. We have reached these zones for higher TRL, so we can get there. But then the bankability, insurance, and unclear business models. Well, I think this is for now, a stop. Because the starting businesses, they actually want the same incentives as the wind farms have had before. And due to strategic choices, they will not come. And then, actually the profit of this starting business right now, or the to-come profit, is not high enough to combine the uses, in my experience. But I'd like to hear.
Yeah, I have an experience from our NGO, and the comment is overall to nature projects, maybe not specifically dual use only, but we have a project where reed is harvested out of water to take out nutrients, and this project per se is difficult in terms of bankability. So what we needed to come up with is the new business model with the whole value chain. So basically entrepreneurs who are able to process the harvested reed into commercial products. And now this material is still not competitive in terms of price versus substitutes. So it needs scaling, it needs entrepreneurs, but it needs also marketing for the new products, arguing for the premium for this kind of circular use. So it's often about creating completely new business models, new entrepreneurs, new sectors.
Thank you very much. Then let's move on to the next question. Since we've been talking about so much about policy instruments, so what do you think would most accelerate multi-use? So should we focus on permitting, one-stop permitting for co-located uses, on financial incentives from the government, on sea basin level MSP guidance with, for example, multi-use or innovation zones, like we've also heard from Belgium, or mandatory multi-use assessment for larger offshore projects, like we've heard from Bettina, are done in the Netherlands, and producing these area passports. So yes, we have A, permitting, B, financial incentives, C, multi-use zones, and D, multi-use assessments in offshore projects. Go ahead. You can't just stay at the same spot because you're too lazy to move. That's not how it works. All right. Also, if you found your corner, I see D is always very unpopular, but you can start discussing. Okay, then we will come to an end with the quick discussions. And again, I think B has received a lot of interest, seems to be a very comfortable corner over there. Then we have a few people in C and D as well, and also very few people in A. C is, oh, this is 0. Okay, okay, okay. B is the winning answer. People want financial incentives.
Couple of points.
Okay, then can we quickly ask you to share a short recap of why you chose this corner?
Hello, everyone. We're all.
Would you all come, bring your attention back to the front, maybe, so we can hear the different answers? Thanks.
So, hello, everyone. We're all from Latvia, so it makes sense that we chose this one, and we're really thinking about this aspect and contacting law professionals, and this is actually what they recommended us, so that it would be less complicated to obtain these permits. So the rules of the game are as clear as possible. At the same time, we do acknowledge that financial incentives could also play a notable role, but really in our case, this one-stop permitting for co-located uses is really the, yes, indeed.
Thank you very
so
much.
Okay, B, so populated. Yeah. Who would like to?
Oh, you already. Yeah, I think it's only logical that because a lot of us came from the business being the biggest hurdle corner, and so if the business doesn't work, probably financial incentives will be needed, and maybe those can come from nature credits or something that will be developed in the future. I think that's the main element we have here. Yes.
Thank you so much. Okay, moving to D, since C0, who would like to say a few words?
Yes, I can comment. So we choose D because we see it's very important. It can be just one of the stimulus why offshore wind projects are considering multi-use if they do have a mandatory requirement to assess feasibility. So it doesn't mean that it immediately leads to implementation of multi-use, but at least it sets a precondition. If we do not demand this assessment, they will ignore at all the need for that.
Okay, great. So we have time for one more question.
One final question, and then we're closing the session. And now it is about what combinations we should prioritize. Which ones do you think will be most relevant in the near future? So will it be offshore wind and seaweed mussels in A, offshore wind and nature restoration in corner B, offshore wind and renewable energy in corner C, or if you have any wild dreams that you want to share with us, you can go into D, other. Okay, go ahead and move. Yes, people are big fans of offshore wind and nature restoration.
Okay, 5, 3.
All right, then we will end this discussion round here, and we will have one final round of you sharing with us why you chose the specific answer. We're starting again with A. Ivana.
Okay, I chose this answer because this is already happening in some areas, so it seemed very realistic.
I'm very happy to hear that you're all still discussing, but I would prefer if you take the rest of the discussion into the coffee break so we can have one final round of microphone experience sharing.
Yep, so I won't repeat myself, but it just seemed very realistic, seeing as there's already examples where this is happening in the Baltic Sea. And then I think we tend to come from maybe areas of the Baltic Sea which are already relatively pristine or haven't been affected by offshore wind that much. And so we don't really think that restoration is associated with offshore wind. It's more an exploitation effect where we're from.
Okay, great. Thanks so much. Again, be super populated. What have you discussed?
No.
Just a few words.
Yeah, well, first of all, I think we agree with the restoration. Anyway, but I think many of us don't really believe in mussels in the Baltic Sea. They're too small. And that's one. And then we also think that there are many studies that show that offshore wind areas will have similar effects as in MPAs, for example, and create reefs. And there's already nature-inclusive design in a lot of offshore wind companies' strategies and permits. What did I miss? Anything you can add?
We hope so.
Yes.
I think it's enough. No, I just think that nature-inclusive design is a basis for everything, and this should contribute to restoration, so this should be prioritized. But on the other hand, the one small word about the energy island in Belgium, it had a lot of nature-inclusive design measures. Now, due to budget constraints, they are removed. So I think, yeah.
Okay, thanks so much. And D?
We are still debating because we couldn't agree with 3 above ABC, so we came to D. It's usually in surveys, when you don't know what to answer, you answer the last one. But we are discussing about other combinations to see also fishery, and inside and tourism, and also nature conservation, not only nature restoration, because there can be other management measures. So.
Yeah, I have something in the category of a dream, because Baltic Sea is the most oxygen depleted sea, probably globally, so there is no oxygen on the seabed. But then there will be huge amounts of oxygen and power from the offshore wind. So if somebody, and there are some early concepts, proof of concepts in Sweden that have been tested in base, and obviously there is a lot of factors to watch for, like don't you create more mess than before? But if somebody finds the solution, then it's a perfect answer to the biggest problem of the Baltic Sea, hopefully.
Thanks. Would you like to add something?
Yeah, I mean, my preferred is A, B, and C. And B and C are relatively easy to do in combination with each other anyhow. But I think all three would be the preferred combination, is then you have room for all of them. Why not go for it with nutrient extraction and energy production?
Thank you all so much. We are a bit late, but yeah, we thought this discussion was nice. I hope you had fun as well. Maybe just to let you know that by the end of this next project, we will have recommendations at the sea basin level for multi-use, and we will take into account a bit of discussion that we had here. And if you want to...
Yes, I mean, I think the main things that we took from here now is the government has a lot of work to do to support us in our multi-use endeavor through incentives, through easier permitting, through regulatory support. So let's get working. And the next session, the final closing session, will be upstairs again in 5 minutes. So, I mean, since you moved a little bit now, you know, you might not need fresh air. But thanks so much for being at this session, and have a good rest of the conference.